Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video because today we're going to talk about all the books that I read for the month of March. Okay, so I have to brag. I actually read a lot in March and I'm so happy I did. I have beat every month my reading record as far as the quantity of books that I read, and I'm just so proud of myself. So in March, I actually read a total of 14 books, a total of 5,760 pages. My genres were all over the place, but mostly they were thrillers. I did read some historical fiction, some contemporary romance, paranormal romance, YA. I did read a horror, and I also read fiction as well. I can't wait to share these books with you. I'm just so proud, again, of myself. I can't believe that I've been reading so much, and I'm just so indulged in reading lately. I love it so much. I did have pretty good ratings this month. My average rating was a 4.36. I had a few 3 stars, I had a few 5 stars, and I think I had some 4 stars. But before we get into the video, if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you never miss another one of my videos. Okay, so let's talk about the first 2 books that I don't have physical copies of, that I just listened strictly on audio. The first book was All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham, and I have to tell you, that book was so dang good. I gave that book a 5 star, and I don't even know how to describe the book. That book was just so good. It was so relatable to me, not in the thriller murderish way, but in the way of mothers in general, what we deal with, the stress that we put ourselves through as being a mother or a brand new mother, also as being a woman, and all of the pressures that we give ourselves when becoming a mother in general. That to me was so relatable in so many levels. I've come to realize that I really and truly do enjoy books that revolve around motherhood, especially thrillers, because it's just, again, so relatable. And I'm not, again, saying it's relatable in the things that happen in the thriller aspect of it. It's relatable in, you know, how we project ourselves as mothers in society, how much anxiety we have with becoming a mother, how much pressure we give ourselves as women, but not only as women, as brand new mothers or as mothers in general. It's just so dang relatable, and I felt so seen in this book in that aspect, because in this book we're following a mother by the name of Isabel Drake, and Isabel Drake has not slept in 365 days in a year. She hasn't slept in a year because her son, who happened to be, I think, 2 years old at the time or under 2 years old, was taken in the middle of the night while all of them were sleeping. And so the case has been cold ever since. The police don't really have any leads to go off of other than the fact that they possibly think that Isabel herself did something to her son. And so the story follows her as a struggling mother who is just battling with the fact that she hasn't been able to sleep, and battling with her thoughts in her mind, and not understanding why during that night she did not sense that her son was being taken. You know, she did not sense or feel anything while he was being taken. She has that pressure on herself and that guilt that has built up because she has no idea what happened to her son, and she blames herself for not being more alert, you know, not having the mother senses of knowing that something's wrong, or for deep sleeping that night and possibly could have prevented this from happening. We follow her and how she struggles with the aftermath of this, you know, trying to find her son because the police have pretty much given up on investigating as much because there are no scenes of him. And so she has hopes that she can kind of solve her own case, and at the same time she's battling all these demons inside her, blaming herself for that one night, possibly questioning if she did something to her son, you know. And so there's so many emotions in this book, so many things that are just so good about this book, and I am so upset that I don't have a physical copy. I will immediately grab a copy of this book. So again, I gave this book a 5 star. It was so good. I recommend it, even if you're not a mother. It's just relatable in a way of being a woman, you know, dealing with society and how much pressure society gives us for being a woman and not being taken serious and all that stuff. So I really enjoy this book. I highly recommend it to anybody. So with that being said, after I got my first fix on Stacy Willingham, I wanted to pick up another one of her books because I was desperate to have the same feeling and experience that All the Dangerous Things gave me. So I picked up her latest release, which is Only If You're Lucky. And I'm giving it a 3 just to be nice, but it's To me, it's more like a 2.5. To be honest with you. There is nothing, this is another one of her thrillers. There is nothing thrilling about it. There is a mystery, but it's literally more about college drama, like college student drama than anything else. And I didn't even care for most of the twists. So, I mean, it's not a bad book. It just wasn't for me. I'm not really into books that are set in college and deal with the frat parties and the drinking and all that stuff. I just don't care about that specific setting or premise in general. And if you didn't know what this book is about, this book follows Margot. And Margot lived in a small town. She just graduated high school and she's ready to go and move on to college. Something tragically happened in her small town that she basically wants to start over fresh somewhere else. So she moves, she goes to this college where there she meets a group of 3 girls. They immediately hit it off. And then one day, one of the frat boys ends up being murdered and the story goes from there. Again, the setting just didn't do it for me. I didn't really care about the college drama that these students were having with each other. That's really pretty much all I can say about this book. There's nothing really to this book other than, you know, should you trust your friends, you know. Actually, I have nothing else to say about this book. I don't even know how to break it down to you guys. It's not a horrible book, but it's just not for me. Therefore, I think I'm gonna bump it down to a 2.5. The rest of the books on this list are all books that I physically own, so let's talk about those. Next up, I read Near the Bone by Christina Henry, and I am so happy that I finally read this book, but again, a little disappointed because it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. I think this is described as a horror. In this book, we're following a married couple, Maddie and William. They currently live off the grid in this little cabin on the mountains. This is horrifying in a way where her husband is violent. She suffers from domestic abuse from him, and at the same time, there is something lurking outside of their cabin. So not only is she dealing with her abusive husband, but she's also dealing with something unknown outside. Could possibly be a monster, could possibly be a creature. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about this book. This book is highly hyped, you know, in the horror community, and I just felt like it was a bit disappointing. Like, I felt underwhelmed. I did end up giving it a 3-star because it wasn't a bad book. It was interesting and I was never bored, but the whole concept and what the book really is about, or how it was revealed at the end, wasn't really my favorite. Because of those reasons, that's why I gave it a 3. Again, it's a good book. There's just a horror in the fact that you're living off the grid with your husband whom you should be trusting. In the same sense, you can't because he's very violent and abusive. And on top of that, you're dealing with something outside. So that is truly horrifying because you're kind of stuck. But it wasn't what I was expecting, and all the hype that it got, I just didn't see it. Then I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and another 5-star read. I loved it so much. Even though her books are kind of like a rinse and repeat, I just love the women in STEM that she writes. I love how independent, how smart these women are, and I just love her books. I eat her books up, and this one was no different. And in this one, we're following Elsie, and Elsie is a theoretical physicist, and Jack is an experimental physicist. One studies science based on theories, and the other one studies science based on facts and experiment. You already know that they're going to have some type of pushback with each other, some type of rivalry, you know, some type of animosity towards each other. We're following them. Her day job is teaching at a college. She teaches several classes, but what she really wants to do is be a full-time theoretical physicist because her current job is just sucking the life out of her. So on the side, she works for this app, basically like a dating app where she pretends to be the client's fake girlfriends in order for them to impress their parents or to impress their boss. Whatever they need, she does. But obviously, no sleeping together, and there are rules involved. So what happens is she ends up fake dating his brother. And so obviously they know each other. They keep bumping into each other because they attend the same events. She also doesn't like him because as she's trying to get hired and get her dream career path or her dream job, she finds out that he's the head director of the physics department, and she has no choice but to work under him or work with him or work for him. And so the story goes from there. It's their romance, and it's so good. Again, the banter, the steamy scenes, and the scientific terms of this book were just so good. It makes me feel like I want to be be that much of a badass like these women, and I want a career in the STEM field, or I want a science career. You know, like I really enjoy all of Ali Hazelwood's books. Again, this was a 5-star. The next book I read is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. Another 5-star. This is a cozy fantasy. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes. Travis Baldree did it again with the descriptions of the food, and this time a bookshop, because our main character Viv goes to the small town as she is resting because she does end up getting hurt during a battle. She gets put in this town to rest and to heal while her small group of warriors called Rackham's Ravens are out doing their duty as far as hunting, you know, monsters and doing all that. She's stuck in this small little beach town trying to heal, and there again she meets friends. She meets this cute little mouse who actually owns the bookshop that she currently helps her with. What is her name? Oh my gosh, I forgot. I forgot her name. Oh, her name is Fern, and she owns the bookshop. But you see her, and she looks like this cute little delicate animal, and she's not. She has the mouth of a sailor. She says bad words all the time, and it's just so hilarious to read about. She also has this pet, which is a combination of a... what do they call it? Oh my gosh, the terms in here. Anyways, you can tell it's a dog with an owl combination type of creature, and it's supposed to be, you know, essentially it's supposed to be like equivalent to a dog, and his name is Pot Roast. I mean, just everything about this book was so good and cozy and comforting. I loved it so much, and I was sad. I was sad because Travis Baldree does have other work, but it's not like this. And so I'm just like, what's gonna happen now? Like in this world with Viv, are we gonna have a third book? Are we gonna have any more cozy fantasies like this? And after this, I went online and I put a few cozy fantasy books on my cart because I was craving it so badly. Something like this, so wonderful and comforting, and just everything about this book was so good. It did not disappoint. Again, another 5-star. And then I finally read Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. I can never say her last name right. This is a mystery thriller, and again, it's based around motherhood. And in this one, we're following a group of kindergarten mothers who go to this prestigious, I'm not sure if it's a private school or a public school. This is what they have in common. They live in this very prestigious beach town. Their kids all go to this very prestigious elementary school. And one day during trivia night, somebody ends up being murdered, and the story goes from there. This was so good. I don't remember what I gave this. I think I gave this a 4.5. I gave this a 4.5, and the only reason why I did not give this a 5 was because it was missing something. This was so interesting though. You follow these mothers, and it's so relatable, especially mothers with such young children like the ones in this book. So relatable. Again, it's one of these books where it's based around motherhood. It's so relatable in that sense, what mothers go through when they have such young kids at home. You get to follow each mother, what they go through behind closed doors, and nobody really knows, even though everything might look picture perfect, nobody really knows what these women actually go through behind closed doors. And so a lot of this stuff was very relatable. Also, the main character's daughter, who was 12 years old, did not make me want to look forward to my daughter turning that age, because probably one of my least characters, her daughter was just so annoying, bratty, spoiled, just in that age where it's like she's trying to be her own person, and she's, you know, trying to push back and give her mom a hard time, and just so annoying. I'm not looking forward to that age at all. I love this book. I'm glad I read it. It was so juicy, interesting. I was so hooked from the very beginning. The mystery was good. The ending was so good. I loved the way this book ended, and I'm just happy I read it. Then I read another book based off of motherhood, and that is Push. I debated going back and forth giving this one a 4, 4.5, or a 5, but I ended up giving it a 5 at the end because I could not stop thinking about it. This book is so sad and so tragic. We're following Blythe, and Blythe is in love with her husband, and she didn't really have a great childhood, and neither did her mother. So because of that fact, her mother didn't really show her motherly love, didn't really show her compassion. And so growing up for Blythe wasn't really the best. And because of that, she has never wanted to have kids of her own because she questions whether she's even able to be a good mother in the first place, and if she even has what it takes to be a selfless mother. Because her husband does want kids, she decides decides to give him a child, even though she's hesitant about it. So they have a little girl, and for some reason, after Blythe has her daughter, she just can't seem to connect with her in an emotional level and compassionate level. She doesn't seem like her daughter loves her, and so you watch her as she crumbles and tears herself apart because she has all these guilty feelings about herself, in a sense of, am I a good mother? Why do I feel like I shouldn't have had kids in the first place? Why do I feel like I don't have a connection with my daughter? And she's so desperate to be that loving mother that her mother never was, that she just, again, like, punishes herself in these thoughts and feelings that she has. All of these feelings, she struggles. It's hard for her to talk to her husband about it without making her feel like she's going crazy or she's a selfish person and she's not a good mother. And so she has these demons that don't allow her to move on. So she's stuck in her mind all the time with these awful feelings. But again, it's like one of those things where she does not feel like her and her daughter are connecting. She kind of feels like there's something wrong with her daughter, and that is so scary. And the fact that she has no one to talk to about it because she's afraid to be judged, or she's afraid that that'll look frowned upon because everybody else seems to love her daughter except for her, you know? Again, it's a hard read because this is the kind of book that if you're not mentally strong and if you're a brand new mother, you probably shouldn't read this book. You know, if you're not in a mental state, you probably shouldn't read it. It's relatable in a sense of, again, just like Stacey Willingham's book, you question yourself before you become a mother. You know, am I going to be a good mother? And you worry and you fixate on that and you punish yourself in a way of thinking and worrying about all these things, and you have no one else to talk to. So again, it was a good book, but be aware that it is very disturbing and it can be very sad and tragic and traumatizing at times. Because of this, and she doesn't have a connection with her daughter and her marriage is slowly crumbling in front of her, she feels the need to kind of redeem herself in a way, so she gives her husband another child. And this time it's a little boy by the name of Sam. And this baby is totally different than her daughter. She right away connects with him. She loves him. She feels like this is the missing piece of the puzzle in her family. She feels like everything is going to be better now that Sam is in the family and Sam is in the picture, and the story goes from there. And it's just so freaking creepy, you guys, because imagine being put in this position where you are fighting these demons in your head and you're afraid to voice them to everybody else because nobody else sees what you're seeing. It's a constant struggle, and at the same time you have to keep it together for your family and for your daughter that you don't connect with, and also like not go insane for the things that are unraveling in front of you. It's just so crazy to me. So that's why I gave this book a 5. I recommend it only if you're ready to read something like this because it's not an easy read. Then I read Bride by Ellie Hazelwood, another one of her books, and this one again I gave a 5. I absolutely loved it. I think it met up to its hype and I enjoyed it. And this one is a paranormal romance, and we're following Misery, who is a vampire, and we're following Lowen, who is the alpha male to a wolf pack. Vampires and werewolves have never liked each other. They went to war a long time ago, causing a lot of bloodshed. And so because of this, in order to bring peace amongst the werewolves and the vampires, her father, who is the head councilman of the Vampire Society, decides that it's a good idea to do an arranged marriage between his daughter Misery and the alpha male of the werewolves. It's their romance. I thought it was really good. I didn't really care about the political aspects of the book and why they were at war in the background and how like vampires deal with the humans and live amongst the humans, but it was interesting. That's not why I read this book. I read it for the romance, and I'm glad I did because it was so good. Their romance was sexy and steamy, and their steamy scenes were so good, and their banter was good, and you can tell that Lowen, the werewolf, really cares about her, even though he has like this very stoic, harsh exterior. You know, you could tell that he does these things for her in a subtle way, and they just mean everything. And Misery, I loved her as a character too. I just loved her personality. I think it was funny how clueless she was and how obvious you can tell that Lowen really was interested in her and how clueless she was about the whole thing, which was so funny. But again, I gave it a 5. I had a great time reading it. Then I read The Getaway List by Emma Lord. This was a 3-star for me. This is a very fluffy, fun YA rom-com, and we're following a Riley who just graduated from high school. She really doesn't have a plan as far as going to a specific college or getting a career path going or having a job. So because of this, she has nothing to basically look forward to as far as adulthood goes. In this story, we're following her and her best friend Tom, who happened to move to New York 3 years before she graduated. Because of his mom's career, they had to kind of up and move to New York. Before they graduated high school, they came up with this getaway list, kind of like a bucket list of things that they will do before graduation. So because he had to move like that, that never happened. And so her way of kind of seeing her friend that she hasn't seen for a long time is by going there and visiting him, kind of seeing if they'll check off their getaway list together. The story goes from there. It's about her figuring out what she wants as a young adult, finding herself after graduating high school, because when you are in high school, you're kind of in this community, you have a path. But then when you become an adult, it's like you're lost in the world and you have no idea or no sense of direction as far as where you want to go with your life. She meets friends along the way. She discovers who she is. She finds herself doing this. I liked it. It's a very sweet and fluffy palate cleanser, but that's pretty much it. You know, very forgettable, even though it's a good story. I just gave it a 3 because it was fun, fluffy, just what I needed after reading some of these thriller books. I really needed something like this. So it did what it had to do, but I'm not going to really think about it anymore. So that's why I gave it a 3. Then I read Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison, another book that I know that this was solely based off of a cult. It was cultish themed, but it just wasn't, I don't know. I was expecting more. I was expecting more horror out of it. So that's why I gave this one a 3. And in this one, we're following Vesper. And Vesper, when she was 18, she managed to leave her family in the small town behind. She didn't agree with the things that her family was doing, so she up and left and forgot about them. Until she gets an invitation from her cousin inviting her to her wedding. And her cousin's going to marry her ex-boyfriend. The story goes from there. This book is creepy in a subtle way. It's not like gory and graphic in your face. It's subtly creepy because if this actually happened to you, it would be so terrifying, okay? So terrifying. I don't even know if anything else tops what happened to her in this book. That's all I'm going to say about this book. I don't even want to tell you like the main premise of this book. I don't want to tell you anything. Just go into it blind because I feel like you'll enjoy it a lot better. Then I finally read Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. 5 stars all the way. This was exactly what I wanted, exactly what I was craving at the time, and exactly what I thought it was going to be. This was so good. We're following Elizabeth Sott, and Elizabeth Sott is a chemist. This is set in the time where women weren't taken serious. Women were only expected to bear children, to look pretty, to run a household, but not really have a career, not really be driven, not really be driven in that sense. Except for Elizabeth Sott. None of this got in her way in that aspect, which is one of the reasons why I love this book so much. So in this story, we're following her, how she is a single mother who is just trying to make a career. She really just wants to be a chemist and she really wants to be taken serious. The book is about her and all the things that she deals with as a woman during this time, all the struggles and all the discrimination that she has to face when being a woman during this time again. And not only is she a chemist, but to pay the bills, she was offered a position as being the host of a TV show, which is not really what she wants to do, but she's the kind of character that you can't really give her rules and tell her what to do. She will do whatever she pleases and however she pleases. And so it's no different when you see her on screen and you're supposed to think that she's going to be this proper ladylike woman who just has pretty hair and dresses pretty and just shows you how to cook, but instead she adds her chemist flair to it, which is so good. This book has so many emotions. You follow so many characters in third person. You follow, obviously, her, the main character. You follow her dog. You follow her love interest. It was so good. I loved it. I enjoyed every bit of this book. And the fact that you see her go through so many things in this story, bad and tragic, but she still lifts her head up and she never gives up. She never gives up and she never backs down to anyone. It's just so courageous and admirable from her as a character. So I really loved her as a character. I'm looking forward to watching the TV show or the Hulu TV series I think they made based off of this book. So again, 5 stars. Then I read Listen for the Lie by Amy Pantera. And again, this was another one of those 3-star reads because I don't know why. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to enjoy it. And in this story, we're following Lucy, and Lucy is struggling because she doesn't remember the night that her best friend got murdered. They both got attacked, but somehow she walked away with a concussion and a few bruises, but she did not get brutally murdered like her friend did. And so the whole town speculates that she is the one that murdered her friend, and people are always nasty, towards her and always indifferent because they strongly feel that she's the one that committed the murder, because it's so impossible to believe. How could you forget something so horrific? How could you forget what happened that night? But she really doesn't remember. You see Lucy kind of break herself down mentally because she has no idea if she murdered her friend or not. She questions it a lot because she can't remember what exactly happened that night until she kind of teams up with Ben Owens, who happens to be a podcaster, and his podcast is all based off of solving cold cases. He just wants to solve the mystery of her friend's murder, and Lucy wants to help him because she wants to find out what really happened that night. And the story goes from there. This was good. It's scary to know, especially the reveal at the end, to know that this could happen to somebody. I enjoyed it, but not enough to give it more than a 3-star, to be honest with you. And the romance in here was, again, one of those things where I really don't care about it. But it wasn't a bad book. I know a lot of people really did enjoy this one. I just wasn't one of the people that really loved this book. I enjoyed it, but not as much as I thought I was going to. Then I read The Women by Kristen Hanna, 5 stars. 5 freaking stars all the way. And in this one, we're following Frances, also known as Frankie. Her brother enlists himself in the Vietnam War. This takes place in the 1960s, where again, women are just not taken serious. No woman goes to the war. Women are just known to be pretty and take care of the household and bear children. Women don't really have a voice during this time. Frances decides that she wants to follow her brother, and she enlists herself in the war as well in hopes to be near her brother. You follow her as she becomes a nurse, a military nurse serving in the Vietnam War. You experience kind of what she deals with on a daily basis as far as being a nurse there, all the trauma that you go through, all the fallen soldiers you see, all the lives that you try to save. And it's so traumatic and graphic and sad and tragic, but it's so good. You also get to follow her after the war and what the war has done to her and how much PTSD she has. And so here she is coming back from the war. Her parents didn't take her serious. No one did. No one took the people that served in this war serious, but no one especially took women who served in this war serious, because there's only a group of women who did, and for people, they didn't really care about that. It wasn't really glorified back then. You see her trying to build herself up again, build this life, try to get used to living without the trauma that she had and she endured and she suffered through when she was at war. And it's just so hard to see her break down like that. It's so hard to see her go through all this trauma and no one respect her for what she did and how she served in the war. I think this book was so impactful, so powerful. The women that she meets are courageous, just like her, very resilient, such great women that made a change in history. And the sad part about this, in the author's note, is that these women were almost forgotten. Even though they did so much in history, they impacted history so much back then, they were forgotten and pushed to the side because they were women in this time frame. I'm glad that this author was able to bring their stories to light, which is why I enjoyed this book so much. The ending made me sob. I was crying for the last couple of chapters of this book. I was happy with the way it ended, but man, do you go through so much when you read this book. It was so good though. I highly recommend it. And then I ended the month reading Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and this book was so dang good. It was so emotional. It was more than just a romance. It was about grief. It's about acceptance. It's about finding your way again. It's about dealing with certain things in life. It was just so good. I really didn't like The Bodyguard that much from this author, so this is why I put this book off for the amount of time I did. I'm so glad I read it. It was so good. This book made me feel so many things, so many emotions. This is the kind of romance that I crave. This is the kind of romance that everybody needs to read. It's not about the romance, it's about so much more. There are so many things packed in this one story that you are doing a disservice to yourself by not reading it. We're following Sadie Montgomery, and Sadie actually paints portraits portraits for a living. She finally was able to sign herself up to this very prestigious contest, and she was one of the 10 finalists in this contest. She gets into this accident and she wakes up having temporary facial blindness. And this is so hard for her because as an artist, this is what she does for a living. I'm not going to even say anything else. I'm not even going to talk about the love interest in this book. Just trust me when I say this book is freaking amazing. Every single thing about this book is a 5-star, okay? You follow her trying to deal with this condition that she has, and it's just so good. It's sad, but it's emotional, but it's so good, you guys. I'm not gonna say a lot about it because I don't want to tell you anything about it. Go in it blind. You will have the best time of your life. Your heart will be filled with so many emotions. All of the emotions you can imagine you will feel in this book, and the romance is just top tier. The romance is so good. Everything that happens in this book is so good. Read it, please. If you're gonna read a book this year, read this one. This is a book that you truly need to read, like now, okay? Now. So those are all the books that I read. Again, I'm proud of myself. 14 books, you guys. Who am I? Maybe next month I'll read 15. Who knows? Who knows? But that's it. That's it for today's video. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you on my next one. Bye!